All right, good evening. Good evening, good evening. How you doing? And welcome to another episode of Politics, Economics, the Struggle to Survive in America. And I'm your host, Jerrald President, and welcome world. And today, we're going to start off the show with a very special speech by none other than President Barack Hussein Obama. Now, this speech was delivered in July 2018, July 15th, if I'm correct, in South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa. It was the anniversary of Nelson Mandela. And I just want you to, I'm starting to show off at minute 18 and 16 seconds of his speech. And what I want to give to you, my perspective and my analysis of how wicked and deceptive he is with his tongue. Now, I want you to understand something. President Barack Hussein Obama, was selected. He was selected out of a very select group of individuals who they felt that could persuade the psyche and the consciousness of the people on this planet. See, because he's not a direct descendant of a slave, and his father came here during the Kennedy administration, a CIA operation, to go back to his country and to espouse the virtues of Western theology, capitalism, market-based economy. President Barack Obama was groomed to be in this position, which is why when you're listening to his speech, I just want you to listen very closely to how he finesses. So that's a beautiful word I'm using. How he finesses his articulation of the words, how smooth he is. He's very smooth. And if you're a person that's not steeped in that type of speech, that structure, that pattern, that cadence, you would really be suckered in. And you will listen to the people in South Africa that are cheering and clapping for him. And I just want you to listen very closely to how he talks about how the Western economic model is there to provide and help the people there. Now, I'm just going to press play. I'm going to let you listen, then I'm going to come back again. Again, this is Jerrald President. Politics, Economics, a Struggle to Survive in America. And this is our 45th President of the United States. I'm sorry, the 44th President of the United States. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean the new one, the orange man. I mean this one, the 44th President of the United States of America, Barack Hussein Obama.
Even when those human rights were violated, those who violated human rights were on the defensive. And with these geopolitical changes came sweeping economic changes. The introduction of market-based principles in which previously closed economies, along with the forces of global integration powered by new technologies, suddenly unleashed entrepreneurial talents to those that once had been relegated to the periphery of the world economy, who hadn't counted. Suddenly they counted. They had some power. They had the possibilities of doing business. And then came scientific breakthroughs and new infrastructure and the reduction of armed conflicts. And suddenly 1 billion people were lifted out of poverty. And once starving nations were able to feed themselves. And infant mortality rates plummeted. And meanwhile, the spread of the internet made it possible for people to connect across oceans. And cultures and continents instantly were brought together. And potentially, all the world's knowledge could be in the hands of a small child in even the most remote village. That's what happened just over the course of a few decades. And all that progress is real. It has been broad and it has been deep. And it all happened in what, by the standards of human history, was nothing more than a blink of an eye. And now an entire generation has grown up in a world that, by most measures, has gotten steadily freer and healthier and wealthier and less violent and more tolerant during the course of their lifetimes.
Now, did you catch that? Did you see how smooth he was with that? See, that's what you call hoodwinking people. That's what preachers do every day, on a Sunday especially, and they're in the pulpit. And they're mesmerizing you with their articulation of those verses and those scriptures in that book. Now, what he just did was, that was spellbinding. Spellbinding, however you want to phrase it. 1 billion people out of poverty. What does he mean? What does he actually mean? That means a person that was making $1 a day now is making $1.85 a day. And the free flow of capital and the wealthy. In the last episode, I explained how 5 individuals, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and any collection of those individuals that own Walmart, have more wealth than half of the world's population. You're talking about 5 people have more wealth than 3.5 to 3.7 billion people. And here he is in South Africa, still dealing with the vestiges of segregation. They called it apartheid. Fancy words for white supremacy. Who imposed these doctrines on the global economic structure? Was the same people that was furthering apartheid in South Africa. Same people that had legal segregation here in the United States of America. Same people who had all the juntas in South and Central America overthrowing their governments and installing Mr. Pinochet. You understand? Mr. Manuel Noriega. Same individuals that put Batista in power in Cuba. I'm sorry, wait a minute. Now, this is what's amazing about these individuals. They use this type of face. That's what I meant when I said the last episode. White supremacy has no complexion, no face. It's an ideology, and it's centered right out of there in London and in the Vatican. It's a belief that you will give me anything if I just tell you something that's nice. And you're going to do it because I've given you your tongue. I've given you your religion. I've given you your education. I've indoctrinated you into my system called white supremacy. Now, just because you have this black man that's married to a black woman who was the president of the United States giving you this message doesn't mean that it's his thought process. He's well schooled in the game, which is why he was allowed to become the president of the United States of America. Now, this wealth that he talks about, come over here in the United States of America, and you'll see it's not no wealth. It's a house of cards. It's big and steeped in debt. We couldn't function without debt. The people of South Africa are impoverished. Their minds are controlled by the Afrikaners, the people who came over there in the late 17th, 18th, 19th century. Do you understand what I mean? And when he speaks on Nelson Mandela, I advise you to go read the South African Constitution. Matter of fact, I'm going to put it up right on the screen. And I want you to see where it stipulates there is to be no discrimination of no form. Now, this is after a century plus of land being stolen, people being murdered. They're creating, it was called Project Coast, where they created Ebola, anthrax, and they put it in the chocolates. They put it in the water stream. They put it in cigarettes to kill and to sterilize the people on the continent of Africa. So that's the beautiful thing about living here in America. This information is here, so when he talks about the technology in your hand where you can communicate, yeah, even though the technology is there, if you don't know these particular operations that went forward, you would never know that Nelson Mandela gave carte blanche to the FWD, the clerks organization, or I should have said a regime, and gave them a pass when they discovered that they had created all these deadly diseases and was purposely trying to exterminate the people of South Africa and the people of Zimbabwe because they was rising up and overthrowing the imperial structure that was set in place after the Berlin Conference of 1884 when they carved up the continent. I'll deal in that in a few episodes down the line. But I want to stick to Mr. President Barack Hussein Obama, explaining how globalization was good and how it brought people out of abject poverty. What they did was created another scheme to recolonize another country, another continent. And they just changed the words. That's all they've done. From basic imperialism to the 1884 West Berlin Conference to the alleged World War I, World War II, the consolidation of the white power structure, to the modern day apartheid system that was set up in South Africa, but also at the same time simultaneously being perpetrated right here in North America, in the United States of America, because my parents lived through apartheid. My grandparents lived through apartheid. It wasn't called apartheid, it was called legal segregation. They call it Jim Crow. See how fancy the words are? South Africa, apartheid. United States of America, legal segregation, Jim Crow. What President Barack Obama never says is, who are these people? See, that's how vague they are. That's the beauty of listening to what he says. He never says the white power system, the white supremacist system that was set in place. That's not what he says. He makes it sound really good, subjugation. And then he says how even the subjugators were given a pass. Why is that? Why do you think they was given a pass? Do you think they would have gave you a pass? No, they would have chopped your head off, which is what they do. If they can't use a guillotine, like they used to do in France, the United States, they just drop a bomb on you. They pollute your water, Flint, Michigan, Compton, California. Or they just pollute the airways with chemtrails. See, this is the wickedness of how the white power system goes. And as I say, the white supremacist system does not have a face. It doesn't have a color. It's an ideology that's been indoctrinated on the planet at a global level. He's in South Africa, home of Cecil Rhodes, the Rhodes Scholar System, where all the gold is being extricated, and the diamonds, and all these natural resources that's on the continent of Africa that's not there for the development of the Africans. I'm not talking about the people who colonized it. I'm talking about the people who was there for thousands and thousands of years. They've been there so long that no one knows how long they've been there. But we know the Europeans wasn't there. And how do we know that? Well, because we know that they colonized it. It's not my made up story. That's theirs. Let me get back into just a little bit more of Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, the 44th President of the United States of America.
It should make us hopeful. But if we cannot deny the very real strides that our world has made since that moment when Madiba took those steps out of confinement.
Did you see how smooth he was? He said confinement. And that was in there for 20 plus years. He wasn't confined. He was locked up because he was going up against the white power system. He was locked up. Confinement. You see how smooth he was? He couldn't even say what really happened to Nelson Mandela. Again, at the help of the CIA. Now, a lot of people don't understand that what President Barack Hussein Obama did was he blocked the release of those documents that outlined that the United States of America, the CIA, helped find where he was, just like they did with Patrice Lumumba. See, the United States is extremely wicked, just like the French and the British. They rewrite history after they've taken over. And then they sanitize it to, well, what they've done and the atrocities they've done, that's nothing. We're going to sweep that under the rug. That's why he said confinement. This man wasn't confined. He was locked up because he was trying to overthrow a system. Let me go back to President Obama.
We also have to recognize all the ways that the international order has fallen short of its promise.
The international order. George Bush called it the New World Order. You see how smooth he is? He says the international order. Who's the international order? It's the Security Council for the United Nations. I don't think there's a member of Africa, the continent of Africa, the continent of South America. They don't have a member. The international order. Very smooth, President Barack Obama.
In fact, it is in part because of the failure of governments and powerful elites to squarely address the shortcomings and contradictions of this international order that we now see much of the world threatening to return to an older, a more dangerous.
New boss, same as the old boss. See how smooth he is? See how smooth he is? That's what I say. That's the beautiful thing about paying attention to these individuals. See, they know that the rest of America ain't paying attention to it. Because we are under this international order that he talks about, that he subscribes to, that he's a card-carrying member of it. The international order. Really? The international order? That's why I say he's smooth, man. See, we don't understand this game because we argue with one another. Poor white kids, poor black kids, poor Latino kids, we all arguing with each other. Why these people making real major moves. And they don't publish this and don't broadcast this because they don't think that you're really paying attention to it. But they put it out there. They put it out there in the atmosphere. And they put this beautiful suit on and they dress it up with fancy words. But do these show you who these people are? It's the Fortune 500 corporations, the major banking systems globally, the international order.
A more brutal way of doing business. So we have to start by admitting that whatever laws may have existed on the books, whatever wonderful pronouncements existed in constitutions, whatever nice words were spoken during these last several decades at international conferences or in the halls of the United Nations, the previous structures of privilege and power and injustice and exploitation never completely went away. They were never fully dislodged.
Did you get that? Did you get that? See, he's telling them, the people that's there, but he's trying to make it seem so smooth that they didn't quite just disappear. They didn't quite just disappear.
Caste differences still impact the life chances of people in the Indian subcontinent. Ethnic and religious differences still determine who gets opportunity, from Central Europe to the Gulf. It is a plain fact that racial discrimination still exists in both the United States and South Africa.
This man was the president for 8 years. Now, how dare him talk about racial discrimination when he was the president of the United States of America? You had control of the entire political structure. But he understands when he keeps mentioning international order. He wasn't in command. He was allowed to go out there and sell the international order. You understand? See, you're saying international order, you're saying globalization. That's how they hoodwink you. That's how they spellbound you and spellbind you with their words. Again, the Bank of England, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. and with the weight of the United States military. This is what he talks about, the international order. These are individuals that's forcing genetically modified food on your table. These are the people that have you consuming fish that's steeped in mercury. That they're very harmful and deadly to your everyday way of living. This is the beauty of listening to President Barack Hussein Obama. That's why he was selected the president. And he made everyone feel euphoric. Man, we got one in there. We got rappers talking about my president is black, Nas and Jeezy. Yeah, my president is black. That's what I mean about it. It doesn't matter the face, the complexion of that individual, the ideology of white supremacy. It's there. It's there. Let's go back to him. Do you notice the applause?
And it is also a fact that the accumulated disadvantages of years of institutionalized depression.
Institutionalized depression. What does that mean? What does that mean, institutionalized depression? He can't even say the word white supremacy. Institutionalized depression. Because he knows what would happen. See, that's the beautiful thing. And that's why I admire Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. That's why I admire Marcus Garvey, Latrice Lumumba. Do you understand? These Nasir of Egypt. These individuals understood what they was going up against. Sometimes you do have to stand for something, even if it means that you get killed. This man stands for nothing. And every last president we've had have not stood for anything. He can't even express it the right way. So he tap dances around it, which is why they keep giving you these lawyers and businessmen as your political leaders. You see how smooth he is?
Have created yawning disparities in income and in wealth and in education and in health, in personal safety, in access to credit.
Access to credit. You see? This is the beautiful thing. He sets you up. It's like that point guard or that quarterback who's looking one way and he throws the ball the opposite way. That no look pass that LeBron did. How Tom Brady set you up for the 1-2 and hit you straight down the middle with the Gronk. I mean, I gotta get it to him.
Women and girls around the world continue to be blocked from positions of power and authority. They continue to be prevented from getting a basic education. They are disproportionately victimized by violence and abuse. They're still paid less than men for doing the same work. That's still happening. Economic opportunity, for all the magnificence of the global economy, all the shining skyscrapers that have transformed the landscape around the world, entire neighborhoods, entire cities, entire regions, entire nations have been bypassed.
You hear how he said entire have been bypassed? Detroit, Miami, Houston. You grab a city, and it's been done the same way methodically throughout the United States of America. Now, ask yourself, why didn't he do this and address this while he was the president? Why didn't he do this? Why not allow every nation on this planet their own sovereignty? But see, that's how the power of white supremacy. You can't have a sovereign nation. You can't develop your nation. The resources that's underneath your feet don't belong to you. Which is why in the last episode I explained how the Queen of England owns 6.6 billion acres of land. Now, how is that possible? International order, huh? We headed down that path, that fork in the road. And if we continue to allow these individuals to, hoodwink us with their fancy words and their nice looking suits and, their aesthetics. This will continue to keep happening to us. That's the beautiful thing about paying attention to these guys. They think a person that's just regular Joe Blow off the street can't decipher what they're doing. See, he's explaining to you. He said what he said. Credit. See, that's why I talk to him and deal with politics, economics, and the struggle to survive in America. See, the same game that they applied to my descendants, which is what I always talk about, and I wear this shirt that I'm a descendant of a slave, because this has been proven. It's a science now. We destabilize you. We impose our ideology on you. And then you come and because I've indoctrinated you into my system for centuries, you don't know no other way out. But what you think you're going to do, you're going to go inside of a church and you're going to pray your way out of this. That's what's going to happen, because that's what they gave you. Why they took your resources. They took your land. They gave you their religious and economic theology. While they took what they could hold, they gave something to you that you can't hold. They gave you this thing called hope. Remember that? Keep hope alive. Remember this? Yes, we can. See, they don't just do it to descendants of slaves. See, now they do it to the people who came over to America and took the land from the indigenous population. And they've done this systematically all throughout every continent on this planet. Do you really think that the Russians and the United States are enemies? Why don't you go up there and look at the International Space Station and see who's manning the International Space Station? How do you think the United States get their satellites up into space? So President Barack Hussein Obama, ex-president, is in South Africa schmoozing and making up these nice fairy tales. This international order, that's his own words, is continuing to destroy and destabilize every inch of this planet and imposing their ideology, which is why he said debt. And always remember, they can create debt off of a computer keyboard, a few strokes on a keyboard, and boom, you got a couple of $1 billion. They can artificially create anything because the United States has the reserve currency on this planet, the US dollar, the greenback. Which is why they fight so heavily to make sure that no other nation can have its sovereignty create its own currency. See, that's the power of America. They create these financial instruments that really is just fancy words for counterfeiting. Because it's backed by nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. It is backed by something. It's called the United States military. And if you get out of line, you end up like Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi. You understand what I mean by that? You disappear. Now that's just 21st century style gangbang. The 20th century, they just outright just slaughtered you. The government of Iran, Mossadegh. The government in Iraq before they installed Saddam Hussein. In Egypt, you had Nasser. All throughout Latin America, South and Central America, the United States just went over there and threw them away. Allende in Chile. America's just very wicked in how they do things. But I just was a little bit, I ain't wanna bog you down with too much today. Once again, this is Jerrald President. Politics, economics, and the struggle to survive in America. And stay tuned. But I just wanted to give you a little piece of President Hussein Obama. I mean, he's smooth, ain't he?